I mean, I gave all the codes away right here, right? It's like time, process, projects, clients, finances, rates, network, skills, quality. I'm reading off of a list right here. I'm not that smart. Get those things sorted. Get your shit sorted.
That's Michael J. Morgan, a career coach who specializes in working with mix engineers. He's helped hundreds of insanely talented engineers grow their careers, and if you're a mixer, this is probably not the video you came to find, but it's definitely the one you need to watch.
You know, mixing is not me being an artist. In fact, that thought can actually make it way worse for the artist. This is not a duet. This is a collaboration.
We get into why every career needs direction.
The greatest myth in the arts is that you can just kind of slug it out.
Our industry-wide obsession with peer comparison.
We look at someone else, we sum them up to a 9:16 ratio. And if I do that, if I do what's in this rectangle of his, I will be as successful.
And why even creative careers need to be built on top of systems.
At what point does it cause you to fail? I can't tell you that because it's going to be different for everyone. But I can promise you that if you ignore all those things, the odds of success are a lot lower.
So you've worked with hundreds of engineers as a coach, and we'll come back to talk about how a coach can help somebody like an engineer. But what is the biggest way that you see people kind of hold themselves back? Like, how are people in the music industry, getting in their own way?
Amazing question. I wish there was one way. I literally have a list in Notion. It says catalog of internal narratives, and I pulled that up as soon as I knew we were going to talk about this, because I probably have, no joke, like 90 different internal narratives that I've gathered from clients about how they think about certain aspects of what they do. But I think at the end of the day, like, it actually isn't one, but it is one process, right? So the process of like, some catalyst creates some thought inside themselves that they have an internal narrative about, that they're really dedicated to, whether that's a positive or a negative narrative, they're committed to it. Like, I don't deserve this project, let's say. So like, catalyst happens, a new song comes in, they get an email for a new song. They have a thought, I don't deserve this project. That might be a narrative they've had for decades. They could have been from their very first project. Then feelings happen. They get anxiety. They get like almost embarrassed. They might, whatever, right? And then sensations happen. Their chest tightens. They might, pace around the house, and then they act upon that. They might respond in a weird way via email or something. And then outcomes happen, right? That is like a psychologically proven process. That's not something I made up. So to answer that, like, what is one thing? It's like the fact that everyone, doesn't even matter if you're an engineer, like, share this with your significant other too. It's like, we run through that process and we never really stop to be like, wait, why did I say I don't deserve this project? I've won 20 Grammys. I've been nominated, a billion times. Every time I send a song off, everyone's fine with it. But yet I get a song and I say, I don't deserve this project, or I'm not good enough, or I used to be better, or I wish I had done this thing, or whatever. That moment, like these narratives that are just so pervasive that we don't even realize are happening.
Oh yeah.
That is common for every single person. What it does to them is different. What it sounds like is different, but it is always there, and it is always affecting them and us and me and all of us. So that is what I would say is like the number one thing holding them back, is that they're not aware of what they're actually saying to themselves about their career. And then as a result, they're kind of just acting off feeling, sensation, which again, you should be acting off feeling to some degree. If that feeling isn't like freaking out all the time, anxiety through the roof, it's really not the
totally
ideal feeling to be acting upon,
Can we define internal narrative? Because I know what you're talking about, because I've worked with coaches in the past, and I kind of think of it like a limiting belief. But can you define that for people that are listening?
Yeah, right. So there was a quote I heard years ago that I love, and I said it like 50 times yesterday and probably a billion times in my life, which is words make worlds. And the idea that like the words that we have in our head, the words that we say to people, the words that we allow in, the words that we allow to affect us, they create our world, both externally and internally. And so those words connected together create sentences, paragraphs, and then stories, right? There's a narrative to these stories, these words that live in our head. So if I believe that I'm a failure, all of these internal narratives kind of support that story.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, of course I don't deserve this project. And of course, like my friends are mad at me. And of course, like, my girlfriend's upset with me or whatever, or wouldn't like me or whatever, right? Or they're single and you're like, I'm never going to find a partner or whatever it may be. Everything is in service of these internal narratives, right? These sort of threads are all in service of it. And I define it as really like the stories we tell ourselves and the components that make up those stories. So like the actual, like, I like to start them with the word I or something about me or something that leads with the self, or our perception of the self. And there's many versions of self, but the self I'm talking about is just like, I don't deserve this project. I'm not good enough. I this, I that. And when I start looking at this, and I hear it right away from clients, they'll just say it without even knowing. Yeah, but I don't really deserve that. So da da da. And I'm like, wait, hold on. What? Where did that?
Let's go back to that.
That's living in you? Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just really internal, so inside, and narratives, like stories that are being played out.
It's like, when you're looking at a car and then that's the only car that you see, right? And it's very much that. Like, if you are looking to validate the fact that you don't mix label projects, that you only mix indie artists, then that's what you're going to see every day when you go out into your dealings with your network. You're just never going to get a label gig because you've already convinced yourself that you don't, and you're going to fulfill it, like you said. So that's a great biggest thing that holds people back, because those narratives can be freeing as well. Have you helped people like flip those narratives and then just like unleash?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen really tough people, talented people, but tough people, like their physical and cadence and the way they present themselves as like tough, like tear up during the exercises we do with the internal narrative work, which is the first 4 weeks of the program. And every time I start someone new, I'm like all giddy because I'm like, oh, we're going to dive into this. Like, I know this is going to be transformative. They're going to even hear just one new narrative about themselves that they've never said out loud, but they believe.
Yeah.
When you write them, we re-architect them together. We're talking about offline about my time as a designer, but for me, designed about like shaping the world, right? And so, shaping these narratives, crafting these narratives together, they bring in, a narrative like, I don't deserve this project, and we rewrite it to whatever is feels natural to them. But it might be that, like, I'm so grateful to have an opportunity to help facilitate someone's art, or even, something like that. If that's what sits with them better, maybe it was at the root of why they say I don't deserve it. Or like, I'm, consistently aware, and of my areas to grow, and I'm striving towards them. I'm kind of riffing these off on the fly, but it is a bit like writing poetry.
Right.
And we're writing this poem together about themselves. And yeah, I've seen, like I said, really tough people tear up in these sessions. And I was just like, this is the best day ever. Like, this is a beautiful moment because I do work with a lot of men, and there is a lot of men in the pro audio industry. Not for better, not for worse, but there definitely could be more diversity in this world, and definitely in this industry.
For sure.
But having the opportunity to work with this many men and seeing sort of male vulnerability happen so often, it's been a really beautiful thing, because I don't think that these people get an opportunity to do that. And they're sort of in this like technical role. Like, I'm smart. I know everything. I'm aware of everything. I'm capable of everything. But that's sort of a shell around like how they really feel and how they really want to express. And so I definitely don't want to make it a gender specific thing at all, because it's not. And I have like amazing, amazing clients that are not white dudes for sure. But seeing young young male engineers like tearing up on a call, I feel like that, in a way, in a roundabout way, makes the whole industry more supportive of other people that aren't just like them, right? When they realize they can be vulnerable, they can allow more people into this world and not, feel like so defensive because they're protecting so much of themselves and their narratives. Like, so this is sort of a tangent, but it does a lot of things beyond just like making them feel better or making them tear up, the things that we wouldn't really expect on the surface.
It makes me think about just the classic studio lifestyle, is this idea that you have to work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I remember when like I kind of wanted to find balance in my life, and I was working with a coach, and you realize that it is emotional when you're like, oh, I actually don't have to believe that thing that I've believed for 15 years, that I have to sacrifice my personal life and that I can't have a real relationship because I have to be available at all times. And then you find out that you can still work and have balance and live like the life you want, plus have the career you want. I mean, it's hard not in that moment, whether you're on a call with a person or after you hang up, to just be like, so like freed, of like, well, shit, I've been living the wrong thing for so long. This is possible. But it takes work to have those realizations. So maybe this is a good time to ask, because you've kind of hinted at it, so we'll just get straight to the point, is like, what role can a coach play for an engineer? Like for somebody that's like, coach, what are you talking about? Like, what does someone like you do when you sit down with an engineer or mixer or producer to help guide them?
Well, I mean, in a way, you said it in the question, which is to help guide them. I think at the core of it is like everyone's coming from a different place. And so they need guidance in different ways. Every single client of mine, though they're called a mix engineer, though they might even live in the same city and be aspiring to work on the same things, all of them are coming at or into the coaching sessions at a different place. Some might be really like obsessed with brand and love the idea of brand. Some might be afraid of brand. Some might be really excited about process and operations. Some might be really excited about internal mindset and themselves. That said, what can I offer? I break down the program into 3 sections because I think these are the most important things to be mindful of as a solo business owner that calls themselves a mix engineer, but really they are a solo business owner, which is the mindset component, which is the first 4 weeks. The second 4 weeks is the management component. So managing the operations. I mean, I have a list of things you can manage, which I would love to get into. It's a kind of broader realization of just around these pillars of things you can manage. But basically, like, you have brand, you have managing your time, your process, projects, clients, finances, all of these things that your own skills, your network, your rates, the quality of work, like these are things that you have to manage, but also realize that you have the responsibility to manage those. And then you need the processes, the ideas to be able to manage them, and the tooling and the infrastructure to manage them. And then lastly is brand and communications externally. A big responsibility as well, which is like, how do I want to be perceived? How do I want, how do I feel natural presenting myself that feels true to me? And what is that middle ground, and how do we kind of package that to present it to the world? So for me, I feel like I could help in all of those ways. But it's interesting because I think at the core of it, it is really just mindset and having some sort of tooling and tactics to get an action plan together to make that thing happen. Whether that's like just essentially feeling empowered. I guess really at the end of the day, it is just feeling empowered with the, I'm going to tangent all day right here, but
Perfect.
feeling empowered with the resources needed to achieve the goal that you have.
I like that. I like that.
And that stems from a model. I did a bunch of research into the word context. It's like, what is context? We talk about context all the time. We use that word kind of flippantly without really having a clear definition, because context actually is everything. So it's like, it literally kind of encompasses everything, but like you can still frame it since it's a concept. You can still frame it with other words that like break apart what context is. And so I looked at a bunch of studies, like 7 or 8 studies about context that psychologists had done, and realized like where did it overlap? What were some new ideas, and sort of what was this whole context? What did it look like? Because through that, I was like, that's really how you could really start solving problems better, understanding problems better. And essentially the way I draw it out for all my clients is there's you, the subject in a situation. That situation changes over time. And you're aspiring for a goal, whatever that goal might be. That might be like making coffee. Everything is a goal to some degree. And there are resources that help you get to that goal, and there are sort of pitfalls that prevent you from getting there. So I became really interested when I understood that simple model that kind of covers everything. Was like, what are resources? And when we think about resources, especially as like Americans, like it's money. That's it. It's like, money
Give me
is
my
the only
dollars.
resource. Yes. And there's so much more than that. And especially, what you've been through recently, like there's more resources than just money. There's community, there's network, there's ideas, there's skills as resources.
Yeah.
There's technology and tools that are resources. And so for me, it's also helping people feel empowered by it. So when I said before, empowered by identifying the resources needed to get to the goal, it's really identify that there are more than one resource to get to a goal. What might those be on my quest that I'm on towards a goal? And also where are the pitfalls that I fall into, and how do we prevent them from continually falling into that?
That's great. I want to go back to the order of the stages. I think it's the only order that works, right? Because mindset, you kind of have to wrap your head around what you want and work on yourself. Then you need the tools to be able to deliver, right? I mean, we all know engineers or producers that are super talented but very unorganized. And it comes out in conversation. I've worked with songwriters and they're like, "Oh my God, he's so good. He's been trying to finish a demo for like nine months." And so then
Yeah.
once you have those two things, then you can go out and do the branding and do the extra networking with confidence. And then when you land those extra those new opportunities, you're going to close them out even stronger than you were going to before you sorted out your mindset and your system. So I think that layout is really great. But I know you said you wanted to talk about it. Let's talk about systems. You mentioned Notion. I love Notion. So you won
Love
me over
Notion.
in the first 2 minutes. What does like a professional workflow look like for a mixer in your opinion?
Yeah. Without giving out all the secrets away, I'll say, gotta keep something behind my up my sleeve, I guess, right? No, but I think the the ideal systems for a mix engineer is one that supports the management of time, the management of process, the management of projects, the management of clients, the management of their finances, the management of their rate, the management of their network. That I say network as in people that are not that clients are not part of your network, but they're a separate segment of people. Like a mix engineer to another mix engineer is sort of more network peer based, and
Yeah.
clients are part of the network, but more. So I like to separate them for a good reason. Systems that support your skills and development, systems that support quality, and systems that support your brand. So there isn't a system, but there are multiple systems that can support that. And systems really meaning like this step by step nature to achieve the outcome that you're setting forward. So if it's about time, it's like, well, what is the best system to set boundaries around my time, know when I need a break, know when I work, like allow me to set up time with people quickly, allow me to change those times quick, like etc. Right.
Yeah.
That one's a simple one. It's called a calendar. A lot of people don't know those things exist. Really fascinating tool, been proven out by over decades and centuries. But to this day, I mean, you ask what holds people back. So sometimes I say, "Do you use a calendar?" They go, "No," and I am blown away. As someone who really loves calendars, I'm even more blown away. But
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people don't even do that, and so you know I think you said the mindset to management to marketing works well, but it's interesting because some people, they come in, they want clients. That's what they want. They come to me, I want clients. And then those same people might be the ones that say, I don't have a calendar, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a way of really understanding my process. How many projects are you working on? How many leads do you have? It's not really clear, right?
Yeah.
So I think clarity is also something I can bring, because we often leave things just sort of in the fog, in the abyss. We don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
As a coach, someone that's next to you, we can look at it together, and we can, clear the fog away and say, hey, I know it's scary in there and it's weird. I got you. You're good. Like, I have systems in place that we can like kind of navigate that. And I can take on all these things out of the fog and kind of organize it for you, and present it back to you in a way that like you haven't heard or thought about or seen before. And we can turn that into action. Whereas I think a lot of things that we leave there, we leave it there because we don't know how to act upon it. And so we just leave it in the fog. And so I think a coach can also help take things out of the fog and sort through it.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting. Something that I've tracked my time for a couple years, and I think a jam that a lot of people get in as they get further in their career is that they just say yes to everything, right? Because they're like, oh my God, I'm getting all these calls. And they don't even know how long it takes them to do a mix. And then they start telling people that I'll do this next week. And I'm going to hit your deadline. And then you become that person that has to email all your clients or text your clients, be like, I'm not going to be done this week. I'm not going to be done this week. And it's because you, like you said, you're not using a calendar. You have no clue how many songs you can realistically do in a week. Some people can do one, some people can do 10. But if you overbook yourself, you're going to have a reputation for not following through. And the only way to do that is to understand your time and to handle it properly.
I mean, the first question you asked is the whole episode, right? I think me getting through, like, really trying to, every time I'm answering a question, I go, well, actually, that's the biggest one. No, actually, that's the biggest thing. No, that's the biggest thing. And I think it's because these are all such big things. One thing I was thinking, one is about comparison and people saying, well, it doesn't look like Travis like has a calendar. Like on Instagram, it looks like he's like at the beach. Like, so I don't think I need it. Like he's killing it. I should just go to the beach. And I go, but what? You don't, that's like the smallest glimpse into his life is on
Yeah.
an Instagram story. There's like so much that happens in one day. Like think about your day. Like think about your one day as an individual, like 24 hours, all this stuff. If you really think about what happens in a day, it's so much. And yet
It's crazy.
we look at someone else, we sum them up to a 9:16 ratio rectangle on your Instagram and go, oh, that's his whole life. My life, very complex. That guy's life, just a
Very simple.
story. And yeah. And if I do that, if I do what's in this rectangle of his, I will be as successful, right? He's out at a party. I just need to go to a party. I don't need a calendar. That's insane. Like, I don't need a
Yeah.
process. So I think a bit of comparison and just assumption around what other people are doing. And then also viewing important things as little things, oh, a calendar, like that's whatever. Like that's, who needs that? I'm good. Like I can manage it. I can tough it out, or I just don't need it. Or what's the point? And just sort of ignoring it and be like, that's not a big deal. But sure, maybe it's not. But when 25 things that are not a big deal are ignored, they become a big deal. It's sort of like the boiling pot of water that you're in that you don't feel it boiling type thing. It's like you're not going to know the point where all those little things that you've ignored is the reason for the success that you want not happening. So why not just do the opposite? Why not just say, you know what? I'm going to mitigate my chance of failure by addressing all of the little things so that there aren't any little things for me to blame it on. You know what I mean? Like that's a better approach.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you're saying, well, I don't think it's the calendar, I'm going to ignore it. I don't think it's my process, I'm going to ignore it. I don't think it's networking, I'm going to ignore it. I don't think it's knowing my finances, I'm going to ignore it. At what point does it cause you to fail? I can't tell you that because it's going to be different for everyone. But I can promise you that if you ignore all those things, the odds of success are a lot lower. And so like, why not just increase your odds of success? To me, that sounds obvious. And when I put it this way, to most people, it sounds obvious, but we don't usually put it that way to ourselves. And so then we're like, I'm not winning. What is happening? Why is Travis at the Grammys? Like he's always at the beach on his story. I don't get it. And it's like, well, look at all the things you ignored that he didn't ignore, and I think I mean, that to me is, maybe to answer the first question who kicked us off with, I think that's the biggest one.
Yeah.
Until I think of the next one, that's the biggest one.
There's a bunch of things I want to hit in there. The story that you tell yourself about your peers is just as dangerous as the story you tell yourself about yourself. How do you even know somebody's happy with what they're doing? You think that like some hotshot famous mixer, engineer, producer is, happy and that they have the control of their life, but you don't know. You tell a story about them to yourself, and then that just makes you more frustrated because you believe in this thing that might not even be true in the first place. So that goes right back to where we started. A lot of what you're talking about, this like, I don't need a calendar. I think that goes back to the old school studio masculine energy of like, why do I need this shit? I'm just in the studio all day. So like, I don't need a calendar because I'm just going to sit in front of the computer. I'll just do the thing.
I have a theory on this that I was just talking to one of my best friends, Dave Weingarten. I'm working on an album for fun, and he's producing it. And
Nice.
just, I could speak about how incredible he is for the whole episode, but I will, I digress. What I'll say is we were on the phone yesterday. We'll just like hop on the phone. We'll just spitball about kind of our observations on things, challenges we're going through, talking through stuff. And I talked about this belief that I think we all carry in the arts, right? Because the umbrella of where we are working within is the arts. Even myself, I am existing within the arts, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm not an artist in the arts. I am a coach for mix engineers within the arts, right? Because we work under music, and the term music is under the umbrella of the arts. But I think that the greatest myth in the arts is that you can just kind of slug it out. You just like act on emotion and passion, and anything can happen and will happen. And that's all you need. That's the strategy. The strategy is like being a fully emotional being, and everything else will work out. Now, I say it's a myth because it's not true. It's been true maybe a few times, but for some reason, those few times became the narrative. And for some other reason, we've all decided that that is how this works. And so,
Yeah.
on average, I think a lot of people enter into the arts because they go, well, I don't want to do math, because math, people are serious when they do math. And science, they are serious when they do science. And technology and coding, they're serious when they do that. But in the arts, I can just be emotional. I don't have to be anything else. I don't have to have any structure or process or anything. And so we get into it usually via playing in a band, or like doing something music, hitting like a note on a keyboard and being like, what the hell? This is incredible, right? But then it changes over time. And like being in that pot of water that's boiling that we don't realize, all of a sudden you find yourself in a role that is not the artist anymore. You might find yourself as a producer or an engineer or a coach for mixers, right? You can find yourself anywhere, manager. And yes, you're within the ecosystem or the domain of the arts and the domain of music, but you're not rocking out on stage every day, right?
Yeah.
The person that supplies Monster Energy or Red Bull to Live Nation venues, I don't know which one they have there, or whatever they have, right? That person is existing within the arts as well, but like they still need to deliver those drinks to the venue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it has to be probably done at a certain time for a certain price and with certain expectations, right? And they're
Yep.
not like singing and dancing around emotional about the delivery of that thing. It's just part of what they do. And so I think that a big evolution for people is realizing and putting themselves on the hook a bit, and realizing that, okay, I'm in the arts, but I'm not an artist. Mixing is not me being an artist. In fact, that thought can actually make it way worse for the artist who is the artist. Because it's like,
Right.
this is not a duet. This is a collaboration, but this isn't a
Yes.
duet between two artists. And so I think realizing you can exist within the arts, you can use your gift to support the arts without being an artist, and without inheriting what we believe the artist must do to be successful, because that's also not true. And I think that's a myth for artists, but I'm not going to get into that side of it.
Yeah.
Taking responsibility for the change in your life that you want, for the growth that you want, it doesn't have to be purely emotional. And I actually think it's making people stop before they start in many ways. And so I
Mm.
think, yeah, I think that's a huge myth. I think that's actually probably has more to do with it than anything.
Yeah, no, there was, you had such a great description. Oh, the duet first collaboration, like over mixing is totally a duet where you're like, I'm going to do whatever I want, is a really great way to describe that. You seem like you would probably be a James Clear Atomic Habits fan. Have you read that book?
No, but I was just talking about it with the client yesterday, how like everyone recommends it to both of us. So
That's funny.
I'm actually within the group of people that gets recommended that book. So I guess that's the same thing in many ways.
Just our conversation makes me think about, he's got a quote that I'm going to have wrong, but it's like, you basically fall to the level of your systems, not like rise to the level of your aspirations, because really, like, that's the thing that's going to break first, which is kind of what we've talked about a bit up into this point. We got to kind of work our way to the close, but I wanted to ask you this question, because I think that this applies to a lot of people. If you've been in this industry long enough, you felt like you've hit these plateaus, and I feel like the way this business works is you make it to here, and you're working and you're working and you're working, and you either like you're fine with that, or you feel like you're stuck and you want to jump to here, but you don't know. And I really do feel like music careers, they have quick jumps, and then you're on a plateau, and then an opportunity comes, and it can be a quick jump. How would you advise people to navigate those moments where they feel particularly stuck? Like, I am never going to do X. What do you say to that person?
The hardest quote I've heard about depression when I was deep in it was like, if you look at your life and don't like it, and you don't like the things around you, maybe you're right. Like maybe you've created a life for yourself that isn't worth liking, and that's why you're upset and why you don't like it. Now, it doesn't mean stay there. And it obviously this doesn't apply to every single situation. You know,
Yeah.
depression, we can get into it, but I mean, there's a spectrum of that, right? But if you have a life that you don't like, and all of a sudden, one day you finally decide to look at it and say, I don't like it. Congratulations. That's amazing. That's actually a milestone to recognize that
Yeah.
I don't like my situation, right? Now there's a choice there. There's a few choices there. And a lot of times people say, all right, well, I don't want to think about that again. I'm just going to keep doing everything I've done to get me to this point that I don't like. I'm just going to keep doing that. And I'm going to forget that I even had this thought. That's one way. That's going to be worse, right? There's another way, which is I don't like where I'm at. I hate it. It's the worst. I don't like anything about where I'm at. Maybe it's rock bottom for you. And I've experienced that, but I don't want to stay at rock bottom. And so I need to get out. And I'm a big Batman fan, and obviously the Christopher Nolan Batmans, the Dark Knight Rises. I think there's that, one of my favorite metaphors is sort of Bruce Wayne, like in this prison underground that he has to climb out of. And he's trying to climb every day. He keeps trying to climb. He falls, climbs. People are cheering for him. People want him to fall, right? But eventually, over the course of many cut scenes, he gets out. And I think depression works that way as well. Defeat works that way. Um, when you're looking at yourself and you're like, I'm not in the place I want to be, feel that. Fully feel that. Don't ignore it. Feel how much it sucks to hate the situation you're in. Because
Mm.
if you like it, or you're okay with it, even if you're just okay with it, you're not going to change because there's no reason to change. If you don't like it,
Yeah.
like when you realize that the fire that you're standing on is actually burning you versus like, oh, it's warm, but it's okay. There's a lot of people are okay with. That's when you decide to leave. When you go, it's not okay. I don't want this to be the thing. Okay. That's part one. So really admit that you don't like where you're at and wear it on your sleeve. Be very clear and precise as to why you don't like it. And maybe even what got you there, what behaviors of yours got you there. That's going to show you the path out actually, because it's likely at the very least, if you just flip everything that you did that you didn't like, it will lead to a better life, even just simply doing that for the most part. Then is the Bruce Wayne climb, we'll call it, which is you got to climb incrementally every single day, keep aiming up, keep aspiring to get out of this hole,
Yeah.
and know that like the only thing that matters is climbing up. The only thing that matters is getting out. And that's not going to be like you get a jetpack at the bottom and shoot out. You might, but if you think that that jetpack's going to be the next Rihanna song, and you think that you're going to get that song, and then all of a sudden everything else that you've ignored that got you to the point of not liking your life is going to be solved, that's actually worse. And sometimes I like, in a way, don't wish that upon people that are actually at their bottom to get like this like insanely cool record, and all of a sudden they can pretend that they're like everything's figured out, because that's also
Yeah.
bad. And
Yeah.
we've seen
Yeah.
that too. I know we have, so like, so I think identify that where you're at is not where you want to be. And then also recognize that it's going to be a step-by-step way out. It's not going to be a jump out the same way it wasn't a jump downwards. Like it was actually inch by inch that you went down into that hole. So what are things that can make you get out of that hole? I mean, there's a ton. Obviously, that is part of the work I do, right? The mindset side of it. Get your systems in place, get your network in place. I mean, I gave all the codes away right here, right? It's like time, process, projects, clients, finances, rates, network, skills, quality. I'm reading off of a list right here. I'm not that smart, but brand, get those things sorted. Get your shit
Yeah.
sorted. That is the simplest way out. It's just like
Yeah.
really tidy up everything that was just a complete disaster. And eventually, like when you come home to a nice house, you're like, oh, it's nice and tidy. It feels good mentally. You feel like you operate from a better place. You want to invite people into your home the same way you invite people into your world. If your internal world is all unsorted, you're not going to be comfortable inviting people in. And this industry requires inviting people in. So tidy it up.
That was such a great answer. It's
Thank you.
like you said, it's not the thing that you want to tell someone that like when they feel like they're at the bottom. You feel bad to say, well, just change it, because but in order to change it, they have to accept it and then decide that they want to change it. So as awful of a response as that sounds, and it feels like not empathetic, that's the truth. Like you're the only person that can change your situation. Nobody else is going to like drag you out of that hole. So everything that you just said is so true. You have to accept that you don't like where you are, and then you have to choose to change it, and it's going to take as long as it takes.
I agree. It could sound so cold. And my absolute best friend in the world, I've known him since I was 4 years old. When I was at rock bottom, I called, I expected him to be like, cradling me, right? And he's like, I feel like you had to get to this point. And I was like, I was expecting something a little bit nicer than that. Like, tell me I'm great, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. I go, what do you mean? And then he detailed what I was doing to every step I took downwards, and was like,
Yeah,
we talked about it at each step of the way as you were going down and down and down, whether or not that was the right move. And you said it was. You felt at the time it was. And now you realize maybe it wasn't. But like now you got to step another way. And it's like, I can't blame him if he coddled me and was like, you know what, everything you did was the right decision. And it's like, well, that's not actually entirely true. And so honesty and empathy can coexist. And sometimes honesty doesn't feel good, but it's not going to feel good if someone's honest about your situation that you don't like. How would it feel good? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, and there's a danger in just again, it's sort of, I don't want to enable staying in the fog, nor do my closest friends want that for me, or vice versa. Like staying in the fog is like, yeah, I'm in a terrible situation, but I'm going to say it's great. And we're going to go out drinking and pretend everything's fine. And everyone's like, yeah, yeah, you're the best. You're doing great. And like, I go home and cry, and I go home and miserable. Like, I don't want that. I wouldn't wish that for anyone. So I think Yeah, like if you can recognize it and have peers around that can help you recognize it and be comfortable. I mean, honestly, being able to just say it out loud, this is my situation and I'm struggling, is like so empowering because then you realize, like, oh, wait, everyone around me has been through something hard and it's not actually that unique that hard things happen. And coming up with a plan out isn't as difficult as I wanted it to be. Um, it's actually really empowering and it can be, but it's like, it's sort of this like arc of pain you have to get to that once you get over it, it's like you fly. But
Yeah.
getting up there, you can meet such resistance.
If you enjoyed this conversation and you want to dig deeper into something that I think holds a lot of engineers back, then you might want to check out this video about why big credits don't really matter.